Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and today, Mirz Hashem, we will be learning Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We are holding in Siman Reish Mem Ches, and we have been learning the halachas that pertain to somebody who is embarking on a journey. Till now we've been discussing somebody who's embarking on a trip on the Yam, somebody who's going on a ship to travel by sea. Today we will be discussing Hayotzim B'Shayara, somebody who's traveling by land with a caravan. Our learning should be a schus refuah shalema for Bracha Tova Basleya, who is in need of Rachem Shamayim, and Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanesunim Batzara Ubashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha Hamakayim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitziam Yitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelo L'Oira U'Mishiba L'Geula Hashta Ba'agola V'Zman Kariv V'Noimar Amen. So we begin today on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, second line down in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Reish Mem Ches Sif Daled. Hayotzim B'Shayara B'Midbar, somebody who wishes to travel in a caravan in the Midbar. So he's traveling by land, he's traveling in the Midbar, and the Midbar, generally speaking, is considered a Makom Sakana. So Hayotzim B'Shayara B'Midbar. V'Hakol Yodim Shehem Tzrichim L'Chalel Shabbos. And everybody understands that if they're going to be traveling as part of this caravan on Shabbos, they are going to have to be Mechal Shabbos. Why? Ki mipnei sakana lo yuchlu la'akev b'midbar b'Shabbos levadam. Because they're traveling as part of a caravan of Einam Yehudim. They're going to be traveling through the Midbar on Shabbos. When it comes to Shabbos, they can't stop and let the Einam Yehudim go and leave them behind. They can't be left behind in the Midbar on Shabbos. That would be a tremendous sakana. So, very important to note over here to understand properly the case that the Mechaber is addressing. Here we have somebody who's embarking to travel by land with a caravan. He's going to be traveling on Shabbos, and it is understood that should he travel on Shabbos, there is going to be Chilul Shabbos involved. Now, we can understand that right away, because to continue traveling on Shabbos would entail riding on animals back in the day. Riding on an animal is an Issa D'Rabbanan on Shabbos. Also, if you're traveling by land, Tchum becomes a much greater shaila than what we had until now when we were discussing traveling by sea. Traveling by sea, maybe the boat is more than 10 tfachim elevated off the seabed or off the riverbed. Maybe water travel doesn't entail tchum issues. Maybe any case of traveling by sea is only an Issa D'Rabbanan when it comes to tchumin, even more than 12 mil. But when we're traveling by land, tchum becomes a much greater problem. If you're traveling by land and you travel more than 12 mil, 24,000 amas, there are those that hold that that's an Issa D'Oraisa. So this person is going to travel by land in a caravan. If he travels on Shabbos, he's going to be Mechal Shabbos. So what's the halacha over here? Says the Mechaber 3 lines down near the end of the line, Shloisha Yamim Kaidem Shabbos, if it's within 3 days of Shabbos, Asurim Lotzeis, you're not allowed to go out. You're not allowed to embark on this journey within 3 days of Shabbos. And we can understand this based on what we've learned until now in this Siman. If you're less than 3 days removed from the coming Shabbos, the acharayas of Shabbos is already upon you. You can't do anything now that's going to put you in a matziv where you're going to be Mechal Shabbos on the coming Shabbos. So within 3 days, you're not allowed to embark on this journey. But Ubiyam Rishain, Ubisheni, Ubishlishi, Mutter Lotzeis. But if you want to go out in this caravan on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, so you're more than 3 days removed from the coming Shabbos, that would be mutter. You're allowed to go on this journey, even though you know that when it comes Shabbos, you're going to have to do Chil Shabbos because of Pikuach Nefesh, because you're going to be in a Makom Sakana. Ve'emakakach yera loy Sakana, and if Shabbos will come and you'll find yourself in a matzav of Sakana, v'yitztarich lechal Shabbos v'pnei Pikuach Nefesh, and you'll have to be Mechal Shabbos because of Pikuach Nefesh, because you can't allow the Einam Yehudim to leave you alone in the Midbar. So you're going to have to ride the animals. You're going to have to travel outside of the Tchum. Mutter, it's mutter, ve'ein kan chilul. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. It says the Mishnah Berurah is Chavei. Lechalel Shabbos. The Mechaber opened up describing this case where he said, Hakol yoidim shem tzrichim lechal Shabbos. Everybody understands that if you're going to be traveling with this caravan on Shabbos, you're going to be Mechal Shabbos, says the Mishnah Berurah, afilu be'isa d'Rabbanan. This means even if you know that you're only going to be over Isurei d'Rabbanan, you're only going to be Mechal Shabbos mid-Rabbanan, still, you're only allowed to embark on the journey more than 3 days before Shabbos, not within 3 days of Shabbos. However, the Mechaber said, "Ubiyom Rishon v'Sheni u'B'Shlishi." You want to leave Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, then you're allowed to leave. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chavav, Kvar Nispar Atam. We already explained the rationale for this. Mishum dehem nikram al shem Shabbos ha'avar. Because Yom Rishon, Sheni, and Shlishi, the first 3 days of the week, those are attached to the previous Shabbos. They are not attached to the coming Shabbos. The achrayus of the coming Shabbos is not upon you yet. Ve'ein tzarich lihizaher ata. You don't have to be careful now. Shelo yavu lidei chilul Shabbos haba. That you won't come to a matzav of chilul Shabbos in the coming Shabbos. You're still attached to the previous Shabbos. The achrayus of the coming Shabbos is not yet upon you. Ubeknesses hagdola kosav b'shem Hari ben Lev. However, the Knesset Hagdola brings down in the name of the Ri ben Lev. If you know for certain that you're putting yourself into a situation where you're definitely going to be Mechal Shabbos in the coming week, Asar af b'kahai gavna, then you're not allowed to leave even in the beginning of the week. V'chein kosav Radvaz, and so writes the Radvaz. Now let's understand what the Knesset Hagdola is bringing down over here from the Ri ben Lev. We discussed in the beginning of the Siman somebody who wants to set sail before Shabbos. And we said, if you're going to set sail before Shabbos, you're not allowed to set sail for Dvar Rishus within 3 days of Shabbos. Why? Because by setting sail, you're putting yourself in a matziv where you might be Mechal Shabbos. It could be that when you're on the ship, something will happen that will necessitate your doing Meleches Isser on Shabbos. But it's a suffix. It's a maybe. If everything goes smoothly and there are no storms and there are no problems, you can sit in your stateroom and there's no question of being Mechal Shabbos. But you're going out to set sail on the open seas, that's a Makom Sakana. Storms do happen, things do occur, and there's a likelihood, or there's a very reasonable possibility that you might come to Chilul Shabbos. In that case, we learned that if you're within 3 days of Shabbos, you're not allowed to put yourself in that matziv. You're not allowed to put yourself in a matziv where you might be Mechal Shabbos. Why? Because the achrayus of Shabbos is already upon you. But if you're more than 3 days removed from Shabbos, you are allowed to. Why? Because the achrayus of the coming Shabbos isn't upon you. But there, we were always discussing a suffix. We were discussing the possibility that you might come to Chilul Shabbos. Over here in Sif Daled, the way the Mechaber discussed the case was, he said, Hakoil yoidim shehem tzrichim l'chal Shabbos. Over here we're talking about a scenario where it's understood that you're going to be Mechal Shabbos. Therefore, comes along the Knesset Hagdola, and the Knesset Hagdola says, whoa, hold it a minute. We can't easily apply the same rationale to Sif Daled that we did to Sif Aleph. How can we say over here that you're allowed to leave on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, when you know full well that when Shabbos comes, you're going to end up being Mechal Shabbos? So the Knesset Hagdola doesn't like this. The Knesset Hagdola brings down from the Ri ben Lev, and the Mishnah Berurah says, the Radvaz says the same thing, that over here, this is different. You can't go travel by caravan in the Midbar on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, knowing full well that when Shabbos comes, you're going to be Mechal Shabbos. So he doesn't like this. And continues the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says a very, very interesting thing. Now, I always like to point out when the Mishnah Berurah does this. I forgot to bring my Shulchan Aruch, I don't have it here in my upstairs studio, so I'll have to quote from memory. I always like to do this. You have to understand, when you learn Mishnah Berurah, you have to understand how nuanced the Chavetz Chaim was. You know, the Chavetz Chaim, why is he called the Chavetz Chaim? He wasn't named after the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. The Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation was named after him. So Shmiras HaLashon, how careful the Chavetz Chaim was with Lashon, with speech. Mi ha'ish ha'chafetz chaim ohev yamim l'roistoiv nitzar l'shoncha mera. That's why he was called the Chavetz Chaim. He's called the Chavetz Chaim because nitzar l'shoncha mera. He guarded his lashon, his tongue, from speaking ill. But he was very, very careful with lashon, and he was very careful with the written lashon too, not only with the spoken lashon. He was very careful and very nuanced in how he wrote things. And the Chavetz Chaim gave us in the Mishnah Berurah, he gave us the Mishnah Berurah, he gave us the Bir Halacha, and he also gave us the Shar HaTzion at the bottom of the page. And in the Shar HaTzion, the Chavetz Chaim always brings down his sources. Now, what the Chavetz Chaim is about to say, he does not source. Let's see what the Chavetz Chaim says here. The Chavetz Chaim just brought down the Knesset HaGedolah, who says that in our case, when it's known well that should you be traveling on Shabbos, you're going to perform Chil Shabbos, you can't leave on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, knowing that you're going to be Machal Shabbos on Shabbos. Now says the Chavetz Chaim, Val Pizeh, and based on this shita of the Knesset HaGedolah brought down in the name of the Rebbe Lev, Soimchin Achshav, people base themselves, they rely nowadays, shemisaknim ba'atzmam ktsas, that they put themselves in a certain amount of danger, shaloi l'chal Shabbos, to be careful that they should not come to Chil Shabbos, kedei shelo yi'eser l'mafrei al ma sheyotza, so it should not turn out that what they did when they embarked on the journey was aser. What's the Mishnah Berurah saying? The Mishnah Berurah is saying, because of this Knesset HaGedolah, there are people who embark on journeys to travel by caravan. They leave on the journey on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But when it comes Shabbos, instead of going right away and relying on the heter of the Mechaber and saying, I left beheter, I left more than 3 days before Shabbos. I left on Sunday, I left on Monday, I left on Tuesday. Now Shabbos came, Pikuach Nefesh, I'm stuck here in the Midbar as part of the caravan, so now I could be Machal Shabbos. No, these people don't want to rely on the heter of the Mechaber. They want to be Machmir like the Knesset HaGedolah. Why do they want to be Machmir like the Knesset HaGedolah? Because they reason, if they do Malacha now on Shabbos, right now they're allowed to do the Malacha. Right now it's Pikuach Nefesh. They're allowed to do the Malacha. But if they're doing Malacha now, that means that when they embarked on the journey on Sunday or Monday and Tuesday, they did an Isser. They shouldn't have been allowed to, because that's what the Knesset HaGedolah is saying. The Knesset HaGedolah is saying, you can't leave Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday and put yourself in a matziv where you're going to do Malacha on Shabbos. It's Asr. So if they go ahead now on Shabbos and they say, oh, Pekuach Nefesh, I have to do Malacha. Well, that means that when they left on Sunday or Monday, Tuesday, they did an Isser. So in order to be machmer like the Knesset HaGedolah, what do? Says the Mishnah Berurah, misaknim atzmam ktsas. Misaknim ba'atzmam ktsas. They put themselves into a certain amount of danger, and they avoid being Machal Shabbos. Now the truth is, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch and you look at the Magen Avram, I believe it's Sif Yud Daled. If you look at the Magen Avram, this is taken almost verbatim from the Magen Avram. Yet the Chavetz Chaim did not put in the Shar HaTzion an ois and say this is the Magen Avram. I believe the reason why is because the Chavetz Chaim added a word here that's not in the Magen Avram, and that is the word ktsas. Misaktin ba'atzmam ktsas. Magen Avram doesn't say ktsas. He says misaktin ba'atzmam. They put themselves in danger. Now, there's a problem with that. The issue with that is, misaknim ba'atzmam? What do? They let themselves be left alone in the midbar. They park. They let the rest of the shayara continue on and leave them alone in the midbar. And they put themselves in a matzav of pikuach nefesh. How are they allowed to put themselves in a matzav of pikuach nefesh? Maybe they shouldn't have left on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. But now that they did, and now it's a pikuach nefesh on Shabbos, how could they put themselves in mortal danger and not do malacha? How are they allowed to do that? So the Chavetz Chaim doesn't use the precise lashon of the Magen Avram, misaktin ba'atzmam. He says misaktin ba'atzmam kitzas. They put themselves in some danger. Explains the Rishiv Zatzal, Rav Moshe Zechet Tzaddik V'Kadosh L'Vracha in the Igris. Rav Moshe says, you know what this means? What this means is they don't put themselves in mortal danger. They don't say that it's pikuach nefesh, I'm not doing malacha anyway. That Rav Moshe says they wouldn't be allowed to do. But what they do is, he says you have to realize, when it comes to something like being left alone in the midbar, different people have very different perspectives. There are some people that are very frightful. There are some people that are very nervous, and they very quickly feel like they're in a matzav of pikuach nefesh. There are people who right away they feel, they drive into a bad neighborhood, and right away every person that they see walking on the street is a murderer, and they're tittering. They forget now in 2024. Maybe it's become a big sakana to go on the New York subway system. But, if you go back years ago, if you go back 10, 12 years ago, back in the days of sanity in New York, you could go on the subway. It wasn't the pikuach nefesh to go on the subway. Yet, there are people who are not accustomed to it, and as soon as they go down to those subway stations, they're very, very nervous, and they feel very, very unsafe. So there are people, if they're traveling by caravan, and they stop for Shabbos, and they know that the caravan's going to get a little bit ahead of them, but they have water, and they have food, and they know where they're going, and they have clothing, and okay, so I'll stop for Shabbos, no biggie. And then they lay down and they sleep without a problem. Maybe the big Bali Amun and B'tachan also. But then there are people who, as soon as they see the Einam Yehudim traveling on, they feel alone, they're already panicking. So says Rav Moshe, what it means over here is, there are people who want to be machmir like the Magen Avram, like the Knesset Agdola, so they're misaktin ba'atzmam ktsas. They do things that would normally make them nervous. But they understand that it's not really pikuach nefesh. Like this, if they weren't being machmir like the Knesset Agdola, they would say, okay, there's a mechaber. The mechaber says, pikuach nefesh, we could go do malacha. It's not a problem. We were allowed to go on the journey. And now that it's Shabbos and now it's pikuach nefesh, I could do malacha. I'm very nervous. I feel like this might be pikuach nefesh. But now, because of the Knesset Agdola, they look at it and they say, I don't want to create a situation where now Lamafrey I should have never left on Sunday. So, all right, I feel like I'm in danger, but now they ask themselves, am I really in danger? Calm down. Let's try to think about this rationally. Let's calm down, take a deep breath. Am I really in mortal danger if I stop for Shabbos? So they're mesakdim ba'atzmam ktsas. Now, there's a famous Rabbi Chanan Asiman Zatzal over here that says an astonishing thing. Rabbi Chanan in the Kovetz Haaretz, because of this same kasha, Rabbi Chanan in the Kovetz Haaretz writes, he says a chiddush nifla. What Rabbi Chanan says is, no, because of this Knesset Hagdola, people put themselves in pikuach nefesh, and they don't do malacha. You know why? Says Rabbi Chanan. Rabbi Chanan says a chiddush. He says, if you left on this journey on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, knowing full well that you were going to have to do malacha on Shabbos, says Rabbi Chanan, it was usher for you to leave, according to the Knesset Hagdola. And now if you find yourself in a matzav of pikuach nefesh on Shabbos, it's usher for you to do malacha. Like this, we always say pikuach nefesh is doicha Shabbos. Says Rabbi Chanan, no. Not if it was usher for you to put yourself in that situation. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't himself put you in that situation. You chose to go into that situation. You chose to go into a situation where Pekuach Nefesh was going to require you to do malacha on Shabbos. That was usher. You shouldn't have done it. Now that you did it, you're not allowed to do malacha. But that Kovitz Aris is a very big chiddush. It looks to me like Rav Moshe was not nochis to that chiddush, and that's the reason why he learns it the way he learns it. Okay, now let's go weiter. Ois Kanachav Zayin. The Mechaber said, so you're allowed to leave if you're more than 3 days removed from Shabbos. And then the Mechaber said, and if it will then happen that on Shabbos you find yourself in a massive of Pekuach Nefesh, so you'll do malacha and it will be mutter. Says the Mishnah Berurah Kaf Zayin. Return to Limar, what the Mechaber wants to say is, since memela it will happen later on Shabbos that you're going to find yourself in a makom sakana, pekuach nefesh, and you'll be in a matziv of pekuach nefesh, and kalchil. This is not what the Mishnah Berurah is saying. He's explaining to you the rationale of the Mechaber. The Mechaber feels that you left Sunday, you left Monday, you left Tuesday. The achrayus of Shabbos is not upon you yet. Okay, so you left Beheter. Now Shabbos rolls around. Memela, you find yourself now in a matziv of Pekuach Nefesh. You're in a matziv of Pekuach Nefesh now. You're allowed to do malacha. Pekuach Nefesh is like a Shabbos. Upashet, however, points out the Chavetz Chaim, Upashet, it's obvious. The Lakule Alma, according to everybody, also loy lahavtiach l'shayara. You're not allowed to make a commitment to the Einam Yehudim in the caravan. Be'ez sheyishtatef imam, when you join up with them on Sunday, right? So you're leaving on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So you go to register as part of the caravan, and now the leader of the caravan says, okay, you're joining us. We need you to take part in the malacha that's going to have to be done to support the caravan. So, okay, it's going to be your job on Shabbos to dig a well. I'm just making things up. But they want a commitment from you that you're going to share in the labors of the caravan. So are you allowed to commit on Sunday that you're going to do malacha on Shabbos? We're saying if you leave Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the achrayus of Shabbos isn't on you, and therefore you're allowed to leave Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, knowing that Shabbos you're going to end up doing malacha. But that was because it happened memela. Are you allowed to commit up front? I am going to perform Meleches Isser on Shabbos? Says Mishnah Berurah, obviously not. Upashit, it's obvious. You're not allowed to commit to the rest of the caravan. When you link up with them, that you're going to help them out with Meleches Isser on Shabbos. You wouldn't be allowed to do that even by a Durabanan. And that's true even if the people of the Shayara will tell you, well, listen, if you're not willing to commit that you're going to help us out with Malacha on Shabbos, then I'm sorry you can't join. Because they won't want to let you join up. And this is also true even if you're traveling for a Dvar Mitzvah, which we're going to see you have Heterim if you're traveling for a Dvar Mitzvah, but you cannot commit to do Malacha on Shabbos. You're not allowed to make a commitment to make a Tanai up front that you're going to perform Meleches Isser on Shabbos, even if it's Meleches Isser Midrabanan. Now we come to a very, very interesting Mechaber, 4 lines off the bottom. So, we already learned in the previous Shiurim, when we were speaking about embarking on a journey by sea. We said that for a Dvar Harishus, you have to leave more than 3 days before Shabbos. But for a Dvar Mitzvah, you're allowed to leave within 3 days of Shabbos. Why is that? Isn't the achrayus of Shabbos on you already? How are you allowed to do that for a Dvar Mitzvah? So back in the beginning of the Siman, in Sif Aleph, in Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Aleph, on Yud Beis Amud Aleph, the Chavetz Chaim said the rationale is Oisik b'mitzvah potter ben ha-mitzvah. Was it an Ois Katan Aleph? Yeah. Oisik b'mitzvah potter ben ha-mitzvah. If you're performing a mitzvah with your travel, then you're potter from other mitzvahs. Okay. So what's Oisik b'mitzvah potter ben ha-mitzvah allowing you to do in Sif Aleph? It's allowing you to embark on the ship, to go on the ship and travel on a sea journey. You're allowed to leave even on Erev Shabbos, even though on Shabbos you might come to have to perform malacha. You might go outside of the tchum. Oisik b'mitzvah, and you're going to be mavatal mitzvahs Einik Shabbos because you're going to be seasick. Oisik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah takes care of these things. Now, the fact that it takes care of bittul mitzvahs Einik Shabbos, that's very easy to understand. The mitzvah of Einik Shabbos is a positive mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that you need to perform. If it's a daraisa, it's a mitzvah say. If it's a darabanan, it's a positive mitzvah darabanan, something you need to do. You need to be ma'aneg Shabbos. V'karasa l'Shabbos Einik. Oisik b'mitzvah, if I'm doing a different mitzvah, if I'm traveling for mitzvah purposes, potter min mitzvah, I'm potter from performing Einik Shabbos, and I can allow myself to be seasick. How does it take care of tchum? Well, tchum is a derabanan. So maybe Oisik b'mitzvah, potter min mitzvah, says I don't need to worry about tchum. Tchum is only a derabanan. Okay? How about the chashash of malacha? How does it take care of the problem that I'm putting myself in a matziv where I might have to do malacha? So the Tosfos Shabbos explains that that's also a derabanan. What do I mean? The idea that you're not allowed to put yourself in a matziv where you might have to perform malacha because of pekuach nefesh, that concern is only a concern midrabanan. Midaraisa, there is no such concern. So Oisik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah, takes care of all of these issues, and if you're traveling for a mitzvah, you're allowed to get on the ship. Now we're talking about traveling by land, going in a caravan, and you know that if you go, you're going to have to do malacha, at least malacha d'Rabbanan on Shabbos. And like I said at the beginning of this year, and the Isser of Tchum is a much bigger issue when you're traveling by land than when you're traveling by sea. So this case that we're talking about here, traveling by land, is a much more chomer dika scenario than what we learned at Sif Aleph. Now against that backdrop, let's see what the Mechaber says now. V'ha'oila le'eretz Yisrael. Somebody's traveling by caravan, he's making aliyah. He's traveling by caravan to Eretz Yisrael. Traveling to Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. Oh, so now he's traveling for a mitzvah. Says the Mechaber, V'ha'oila le'eretz Yisrael. Somebody who's traveling to Eretz Yisrael, so he's performing a mitzvah. Im nistamna loy shayara afilu be'erev Shabbos. If he finds a caravan that he could link up with to travel to Eretz Yisrael, even if it's Erev Shabbos, kevan didvar mitzvahu, since now he's traveling for a mitzvah, yachayel lifresh. He's allowed to travel on Erev Shabbos. He's allowed to embark on the journey by land on Erev Shabbos if he's doing it for a dvar mitzvah. Now this seems to be a chiddush, because like we said, he knows he's going to end up doing malacha on Shabbos, and still for a dvar mitzvah we're allowing him to do this. And l'chora, we know that there's a tchum issue. He's traveling by land, and he's allowed to do it for a dvar mitzvah. Says the Mechaber weiter, and this is going to ring a bell from Sif Aleph, but when he embarks on the journey, upaisek imayhem lishbais, he should make a condition with them, he should get an agreement out of them, that we're going to stop for Shabbos. We're not going to journey on Shabbos. And then if Shabbos rolls around and they look at him and they say, stop for Shabbos? We're not stopping. Okay, so now he's in a matzav of pekuach nefesh. He can't let himself get left behind. He could continue traveling with them on animals, isurei derabanan. Chutz l'tchum, he could go out at a tchum, isurei derabanan, if it's 2,000 amas. If it's 12,000, if it's 24,000 amas, 12 mil, could be it's isur daraisa, mipnei pekuach nefesh. He could do it because of pekuach nefesh. So the Mechaber is telling us now, you're traveling by land in a shayara in the midbar, but you're doing it for a dvar mitzvah, you could embark even on Erev Shabbos. The same way in Sif Aleph, you're allowed to get on the ship on Erev Shabbos for a dvar mitzvah. Even though over here, it seems to be much more chomer than Sif Aleph, and we're going to see a manifestation of that. Not a manifestation, we're going to see... I guess not a ramification, a toitzah. We're going to see something that's different about this halacha because it's more chomer. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah. So first of all, the premise over here is that traveling to Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah. The Mishnah Berurah parses that a little bit. Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say, and he brings us down from the Magen Avram, Dahainu dafka kedei lehisyashev ba. When do we say that traveling to Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah? When you're making aliyah. When you're going to Eretz Yisrael to live there, that's a mitzvah. You're going for a trip, you're going for a visit, not so certain. But the Yesharim, there are those that say that even no, you're going on a visit, even just traveling to Eretz Yisrael for a visit is also a mitzvah. The lahalach bahilach arba amos nami have a mitzvah, because to walk dalit amos in Artzeinu Hakdosha is a mitzvah. To go dalit amos in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yisrael, is a mitzvah. Ubefrat lefi ma shehekel Ramah b'seif hasimin b'haga says the Chavetz Chaim. Befrat, we're going to see on Amud Beis in the next chairman session in the Ramah. The Ramah says other things that are considered dvar mitzvah. Going for parnasa is a dvar mitzvah. So the Mishnah Berurah says if those things are dvar mitzvah, then vaday degam zehu b'chlal dvar mitzvah. Then vaday going to for a visit to Yisrael is a dvar mitzvah. Now, ois kat nechaftes. The Mechaber said yes. To go to Eretz Yisrael, which is a dvar mitzvah, you could embark on your journey even on Erev Shabbos, but he said, upoisik imayim lishpois. You need to get an agreement out of them that they're going to stop for Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, over here in Sif Dalid, va'psikohu li'ikuva. In Sif Aleph, by going on the ship, we said that the agreement, getting the agreement out of the crew of the ship, is lemitzvah ba'alma, the Mishnah Berurah brought down. It's not a deal breaker. It's a mitzvah ba'alma. Get an agreement out of them, at least wink wink, that they're not going to travel on Shabbos, to make it at least that you made an attempt that there should be no chilul Shabbos. Over here, by traveling by land, the Mishnah Berurah says, over here the agreement is li'ikuva. Over here it's a deal breaker. V'im lo yisratzu bazeh, if they don't agree on Erev Shabbos, if they don't agree to you, yes, we'll stop on Shabbos, lo yelech bam. You're not allowed to go with them. Now, if they agree, and then they don't listen, so then all bets are off. Then it's pekuach nefesh, it can be machal Shabbos. But if they say, if they're not willing to buy ship, if you try to get that agreement, and they're not nochis to the agreement, you're allowed to get on the ship. Over here, if you try to get the agreement and they're not nochis to the agreement, you're not allowed to leave on the caravan. And the reason for this distinction is as I describe in the Bir Halacha, says the Chavetz Chaim. And the tamtis of what the Chavetz Chaim says in the Bir Halacha is what I pointed out to you. There's a tremendous difference between here and Sif Aleph. It's such a strong difference that if you go through this Bir Halacha, Dibra Maskul, Paisik Ibam Lishbois, there are those that ask a Tumua Gedola on this halacha of Sif Dalet. They say they don't understand how you could compare Sif Dalet to Sif Aleph. How could you compare traveling by land in a Shayara to getting on the ship in Sif Aleph? Over there was only a suffix you're going to end up doing halacha. Over here, it's a vada you're going to do malacha. Over there, it's very possible there are no tchum issues. Over here, there might be an issue of tchum daraisa. So how are you allowed to get on the ship on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, knowing that you're going to have malacha issues on Shabbos? Says the Chavetz Chaim, that's why over here, getting the agreement is a li'ikuva. You need to get an agreement from them that they're going to stop on Shabbos. That way you have a nail to hang your hat on, that it's not a vadai that I'm going to be Machal Shabbos. I got an agreement that they're going to stop on Shabbos. They told me that they're going to stop on Shabbos. So now it's not a vadai. It's a very interesting Bir Halacha. I can't go through it. We don't have the time. It's a lengthy Bir Halacha, but it's a very nice Bir Halacha. Ois Cotton Lamed. So the Mechaber said, you're going for a dvar mitzvah, you get this agreement out of them, Yochel Aleches. You could go with them. In Misyarei his Akev Bamidbar, if it's Shabbos and they want to leave you behind, in Misyarei his Akev Bamidbar, if you're afraid you can't stay alone in the Midbar, Shem Yifkuchu Boy Chayis Rois, if you let the rest of the Shayara go and they leave you behind and you're alone in the Midbar, you're afraid of wild animals. Or Yifku by listim, or maybe bad guys are going to come. Even if they don't harm you, maybe they're going to steal your animals. They're going to steal your car, and now you can't travel and you're stranded in the Midbar. You can't walk V'yistaken, you'll come to sakana. Or yikrum amaynai, or maybe they'll just rob you blind. V'lo yukal hachis esatzbei b'midbar, and when you get to the next rest stop, you're not going to be able to buy water. Or sheyikrum mimenu mabusha b'zman hakar, or maybe it's freezing cold at night, and they're going to take your coat, and you'll never freeze to death. Kulam hu b'chlal safek pikuach nefesh. All of these would be valid sveikos of pikuach nefesh umutar leilechimam, and based on any such type of concern, you would be allowed to continue traveling with them on Shabbos. You're also allowed to travel with them out of the Tchum. Even 12 mil, even 24,000 amas, which according to some places in Nisa Daraisa, you're allowed to do that as well. Until you arrive at a safe area where now there's no longer a shiloh of Safek Pekuach Nefesh. V'yipared mehem. Once you get to an oasis where you're safe, now you can't keep traveling with them. Now separate from them. V'yishpai sham, and spend Shabbos there. Now interesting. V'yesh lo misham alpayim l'choruach. So what happened over here was, you were kind of shvisa wherever you are when Shabbos started. You traveled outside of your tchum. You traveled outside of your tchum even on Shabbos because of Pekuach Nefesh. Now you arrived at an oasis where you're safe. So now you stopped. Really, since you went out of the tchum, you should only have dalan amas. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no, you have alpayim ama l'chol ruach. You have 2,000 amas in each direction. Why? Because it's true that you went out of the tchum, but you did it beheter. Since you did it beheter, you get alpayim ama l'chol ruach. Continues the Mechaber. Second line from the bottom, last word on the line. V'im nichnas li'ir achas b'Shabbos. So, you left with the Shayara. You left for a Dvar Mitzvah to go to Eretz Yisrael. You left on Erev Shabbos. Came Shabbos. You had to be Machal Shabbos because of Pekuach Nefesh. You rode on animals. You went outside of the Tchum. And now, on Shabbos, you arrive into a city. V'im nichnas l'ir achas b'Shabbos. If you arrive in a city on Shabbos, Mahalech is kula. You're allowed to travel throughout the city. Again, we don't restrict you to Dalet Amos. Va'afilu, and well, over there you're inside a city. Va'afilu hinichu michutz le'ir v'roitza likanis le'ir. Even if the shayara drops you off right outside the gates of the city, you're allowed to go into the city. Mutter. Normally you wouldn't be allowed to. Normally Tchum Shabbos would say you got to park where you are. You can't go inside the city. But since you did this beheter, you're allowed to go into the city. Mutter. They came on the Dvar Mitzvah Nafak, because since everything that you did beheter, because you did it for a Dvar Mitzvah of traveling to Eretz Yisrael, Yesh le'alpayim ama l'chol ruach, you get 2,000 amas in every direction. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Lamed Beis. V'em nichnas, if you go into a city, the kevan de ba'oines yatsa chutz l'tchum v'emnei b'kuach nefesh, the basis of this heter, of all these tchumin heterim are, since you embarked on your journey, and you went out of the tchum on Shabbos, but you did it because of Pekuach Nefesh, so you embarked on the journey beheter. And then on Shabbos you went out of the tchum, but you did it because of Pekuach Nefesh. V'gam mitchilasei b'rishus nafak. Your whole journey, you embarked on the journey beheter. Al kein le'hevi kishar yatsa chutz l'tchum. We don't give you the din of anybody else who goes outside of the tchum on Shabbos. De'ein lo ela arba amos. When normally the halacha is you only get dalan amos. The Kasav HaMagen Avram, the Magen Avram writes, the Davka kishahalach l'dvar mitzvah gemura. But this is only true if you're going for a bona fide dvar mitzvah. V'loi kishahalach l'schera. Not if you're going for parnasa purposes, that the Ramah is going to call dvar mitzvah. Because even though the Ramah is going to say that going for parnasa is called dvar mitzvah, but in the context of Hilchas Tchumen, and even if they leave you off outside of the city, you could go into the city, and in the context of Tchumen, you should not rely on this. Since you went out for a Dvar Mitzvah, that's why you get this special dispensation. But let's say what you did was, you were really over on the halacha. Really, you embarked on this journey by caravan, by land, on Erev Shabbos, not to go to Eretz Yisrael, not for a Dvar Mitzvah. You did it for a Dvar Rishus. So you were over on the halacha. Avalim yatsa b'tchila l'dvar harishus. Av she'ata hayamuta l'leches imam chutz l'tchum ibnei pekuach nefesh. So you were an Avarian. You left on the journey on Erev Shabbos for a dvar rishus, which you were not allowed to do. Now on Shabbos, you found yourself in a matzav of pekuach nefesh. You're in a matzav of pekuach nefesh. You went out of the tchum. So you did it beheter, pekuach nefesh. It's a heter. So you do get this dispensation? Says Mishnah Berurah, no. Since you were over and you went against the divrei chachamim, you went against the Isser D'Rabbanan, and you embarked on this journey within 3 days of Shabbos, now we treat you like anybody else who goes outside of the Tchum on Shabbos. Now, but if you left on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even for a dvar rishus, which is mutter, then if later on you went outside of the tchum because of bekuach nefesh, the Magen Avram also writes, if somebody embarked on this journey by shayara within 3 days of Shabbos, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, why did he do it? Not because he was over on divrei chachamim. He thought it was mutter. Guy was going for a dvar rishus, but he thought it was mutter. He made a mistake in halacha. He didn't chazer the dirshu. Havalei shoygeg, he's considered a shoygeg. And as a shoygeg, he also gets this dispensation. He gets al payim amal ruach, v'kein kasvu sha'arei achrayim, and so write other achrayim. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Ronsham should send Yeshua's refuahs parnaset shedukrim to all those in need. We should be zeicha to the bias girl tzedek b'meherav yamenu. We should be zeicha to walk Dalan Amos and more. Baratzenu Hakdosha in Eretz Yisrael. Be well.